Hello, this is Connor Sherry, and welcome to the Holy Trinity Show. Enjoy this episode, everyone. Up the Villa.
Oh my goodness, where to start again? Second year in a row, Sandra and I come across. The weather turns out perfectly. We're overwhelmed by all the Holy Trinity Show viewers that come around to say hi, and then Villa delivers on the field. I know this isn't the usual setup. It's awkward, it's echoey, it's dark. But who cares? Let's get into it. Aston Villa 2, Wolves 0. Now, I'm not calling myself a lucky charm here necessarily, but that's 3 games at Villa Park, 3 victories, 7 goals for, 0 conceded. Not a bad record, and that record will be put to the test on Wednesday at Manchester City, and I have a little bit of worry that we are now down potentially Ollie Watkins, but this is part of the problem, in my opinion, of international call-ups. Yes, it's great to represent your country. I know it's an honor for the players, but you look around and they're dropping like flies everywhere. Big issue. I'll say it again. Birmingham is kind of a special place. You know, last year, our first time here, we were kind of in wonderment and maybe even survival mode because it was all just so new and a little bit overwhelming. But this time we're going to take our time and enjoy ourselves, be tourists a little bit more and see everything the city has to offer. And, you know, I come from a place that is blessed with culinary delights because, like England, Canada is a cultural melting pot. But I have to tell you, we have not had a bad meal here or a bad cup of coffee, which has been crucial. Straight after the match, we headed over to a 24/7 client event at Albert Schloss, and I thought Albert Schloss was some kind of a German restaurant. I didn't realize it was a full-on nightclub, and just walking there on Broad Street, which is where our apartment is located, it was something else, positively bouncing. I think we had to make wide detours around, I don't know, about 12 hen parties. And then we get there, and I tell you, nothing makes me feel as old as a nightclub. Even Paul Hansaker's dad, Ron, the governor, who's 82, looked like he fit in better than we did. I mean, we were out of there and in bed by 10:30. And the reason we had to go to bed at 10:30 is because we were absolutely shattered. Travel here is a nightmare. I'm 6'2", so I'm crammed in this tiny seat on my Lufthansa flight for 9.5 hours with my knees practically up by my chin. Then you have to wait 3 hours in that awful Frankfurt airport. Never again are we doing that, waiting for a connection to Birmingham. I think next time it's got to be straight to London and up by train. But you know what? For days like Saturday, it is totally worth it. And like last year, our strategy for sleep was stay awake for the entire 16-hour odyssey. Go to bed early on the Friday night, take lots of sleeping aid, and wake up right as rain. Welcome officially to the Holy Trinity Show on the road. And I've named the show after the Holy Trinity Road stand, the original one. I sat in the new one, obviously, and the 3, which is Trinity, big issues or moments that defined Villa 2, Wolves 0. And I was my own correspondent for this game, giving both Samir and Alex the night off. I was a bit crap at it, actually, because I probably didn't get enough material, what with all the lovely hellos and greetings that we got before the game. And the key numbers were really interesting because Wolves actually had the better of XG, bigger chances created. They had more possession. They even had more shot attempts than Aston Villa. And the only area of significance where we really separated ourselves statistically was in successful dribbles, which was aided by Morgan Rogers, who went 5 for 5 on his dribbling attempts. And just with Morgan Rogers, who's now trying to cement his place in the side in Jacob Ramsey's continuing absence, well, we saw the two sides of this lad's game. I told you about the stats there with his successful dribbles. I mean, the hard part is wriggling free with the ball from those challenges and then breaking, which he did so often, especially in that first half. The challenge is actually probably the easier part, which is releasing the ball, making the correct decision when you are breaking away into space and not allowing the crowd, which roared, when he broke away, to affect his decision making. And do you know what? With a little bit of coaching and when he makes those decisions correctly, oh boy. I had a great chat with the legendary Brian Little after this game. I said, who's your man of the match? And, what did you think of Morgan Rogers? And like me, Brian feels as though he was brought into and will likely eventually play in the role behind the striker because most of his danger was centrally. So it's a good sign that he's being trusted to play a different role on the left-hand side. But, in the early stages of that game, Wolves had our number. And tactically, they routinely switched the ball to their right-hand side, our left. They would double Rogers and they would also double Moreno. And they got around us and created their best chances from that right-hand side. And I still wonder, is Morgan Rogers being asked to play more narrow and not overcommit in those situations, or whether he's just a little bit slow to react. But on evidence of the day, it's clear that he also probably benefited greatly from a superb international window on the youth international side. Just on that note, it was kind of a tough outing for Alex Moreno, especially in that first half, even though he completed 15 of his 15 passes, a 100% passing completion percentage. Yes, mostly of the shorter variety. And this time last year, we were trying to figure out what he was all about, and so were his opponents. And he settled very quickly. And, the thing about Moreno is he does not telegraph what he's going to do. Is he going to play the ball early? Is he going to drive it to the byline? It's very hard to tell because he doesn't give us any tells. But in the first half, the problem was in his accurate crossing, and we routinely tried to switch the ball to the left-hand side, but he was 0 for 4 on those crossing attempts. And we were in some good positions at times, and it kind of fizzled out with him. Now, not because of how Alex Moreno played, but I would be very surprised, just from a rotational standpoint, if Luca Dean didn't start on Wednesday. Interesting issue was the delay in and around the 70-minute mark. Now, when you're in the suite, you're not getting the punditry or the commentary from the television crew, so you have to kind of speculate. Similarly, we were wondering what was going on in front of the Wolves traveling support with the assistant referee who had changed his top. I'm not sure if it was a technical issue or what happened there, and I never really did find out. But the 70th minute delay was to allow Moussa Diaby to get some nutrition as he was ending his daily fast for Ramadan. And I thought, well, this is progressive. Is this a Premier League-wide thing? Is this an international thing? Because if it is, good on the federations. You need to look out for the health and safety of your players. And, that's a long time to go without any kind of nutrition or liquids, especially because he played hard and, 70 minutes at that stage. So that was a really encouraging and interesting moment in the game. Slightly odd issue, but the amount of Wolves fans in the hospitality area. Now, Chris Woods, who co-owns the suite we were in, the Cyber Q Group suite with Tony Gibson, he works with these folks, and so he's being very charitable to invite them in. And I think he does it because he loves the banter and to torture them. So we had Rob and Serge in our suite, Wolves fans, hardcore, and lovely guys. And then in the suite to our right, there was a whole bunch of Dingles fans, including this one shrieking woman. Even her cousin husband couldn't contain her hysteria. And then in the suite to our left, it was full of dog heads. I mean, we were completely outnumbered, it felt like. And I'm like, what is this? We're allowing these fans to sneak in with the humans and support their team. I mean, you can't do that in the regular seats. Is there no screening or DNA test of any kind? Chris Woods, by the way, Woodsy, has been flying all over the world, the Philippines, South Africa, as Cyber Q Group has expanded and taken on new investment because, cybersecurity is a really big deal. You've probably heard about a number of crippling hacks, and I don't think this is going to slow down now. So if your company doesn't have a plan or isn't protected, I've put the website link in the description of this video because honestly, if you don't have a plan with your company, wouldn't you rather deal with a hardcore, proper Villa fan like Woodsy? And while I'm plugging things, how do you like my Division Retro top furnished by Samir? Actually, Tony ran this and some other gear over to me yesterday. I'm really happy about it, but this is in high demand. I'm going to wear it for my shows all this week. If you want this merch, I've also put the Division Retro link in the description of this video.
Hey, it's Samir at Villa Park, senior video correspondent, and you're watching the Holy Trinity Show.
Oh, one more quick little shout out. Debbie Millard wanted me to wish her husband, Phil, a happy retirement as he ended his working years officially last Thursday. Do you know Phil has hardly ever missed a Villa game, but the one that he did miss occurred on May 26th, 1982 in Rotterdam. He chose Debbie over love. And she's had to deal with that in their relationship ever since. That's about 40 years together. But as I always say, you can't be happy forever. You got to be married sometime. This was a big issue. It actually could have probably been top 3. And, we have our own injury issues and absentees, but Wolves were missing some pretty key players. Like I would take Pedro Neto in a heartbeat. He was fantastic against us in the first fixture against Wolves this season, but he's been consistently good in all the Wolves games I've seen. Hwang regularly finishes chances when they come his way. He scored some critical goals. And Craig Dawson, is a steady head who not only anchors the back, but he can also cause problems in the opposition penalty area. So without those 3, that did make a difference because it didn't feel like they had a whole lot to offer at the top end of the park. And when you look at the fact they created more big chances than us, don't you think that if one of those 2 attack-minded players was in the lineup, maybe the results might have been different. Big issue. And it also could have probably been top 3, but our squad supplementation. And we're going through some challenges here in terms of depth. We might have lost Ollie Watkins for a spell here. It wasn't clear from Unai Emery's comments how bad the hamstring issue was, but no Ramsey again, obviously no McGinn, along with all the season-ending injuries we've had. And so John Duran and Nicolo Zaniolo were asked to do a job, and you know what? I thought they did. And it's been a very challenging season for both of those lads. But the true measure of men and professionals is that you stick with it and you are reliable when you are counted on. And we're going to have to count on those guys. I thought they came on and both of them did a job. By the way, I'm pretty sure that John Duran and some other Villa people are living in this building where we're renting our apartment, because I saw John Duran in his Villa gear in the lobby. And by the way, he towers over me. This guy is a specimen. And he would have been amped up on Saturday knowing that Juan Pablo Angel was watching on in the crowd. But, both he and Zaniolo did wonderful work with their back to goal, holding up defenders, occupying them, drawing fouls, just keeping in possession when they had to. And Luca Dean was sublime, I thought, when he came on. I mean, every touch was just so simple. Then we got a cameo from Big Tim and Kane Kessler-Hayden. Those are such critical minutes to get for those players. Big issue number 3, exquisite Ezri. I could not help but feel that the international call-up and then the contributions of Ezri Konsa in the Three Lions strip during the international window inspired what was an extremely mature, confident, and professional performance. I mean, he was tidy on the ball. 32 out of 34 passes completed. That's 94%. One very accurate cross, which ended up being the goal. But it wasn't just that. He just looked assured. And by the way, if you watch his pre-match interview on Villa TV, do you not see somebody who has just grown? Because Konsa always struck me as a little bit of a reluctant spokesperson in the media, perhaps even bordering a bit on the shy side. But you watch that interview again, and I'm seeing a player who is blossoming as a professional. And on the goal, how many times have I said on this show that it's the player without the ball that makes the play? Ezri Konsa's driving overlap forces Moussa Diaby's hand, and whether he meant it or not, the ball was so good that the goalkeeper is done. So even if he doesn't score himself, well, John Duran was right there and probably would have tapped it in. And Ezri Konsa, he shouldn't be playing right back. And usually, I've said this before too, he doesn't contribute in the attacking sense this way by driving forward and overloading and overlapping. You also saw in the celebrations how his teammates felt about it and the respect that he has in this squad. So I'm convinced that his England call-up and his contributions to it had an effect on this game. Yes, Moussa Diaby set up that goal, perfectly weighted ball, and of course he scored. His 2 contributions were critical. He deserved to be the man of the match. Ezri Konsa was the runner-up. Big moment number 2. Magnificent Martinez. Another moment that could easily have been the number 1 moment, because here we are, it's early doors. We didn't get a proper footing of this match. Wolves had actually figured out our left-sided frailties and were exploiting them routinely, and then created the game's first proper big chance. And what does Debu do? Well, he's been doing it all season for club and country. He simply does not give up on the moment. And I've said numerous times, yes, he has physical stature, but that's becoming metaphysical now. It's a presence thing. It's a reputation thing. And that is affecting the outcome of these big moments and affecting the outcome of games. So let's play out what might have transpired had that gone in. At the beginning of a very taxing 3-game week with Lille just 4 days after Brentford, the last thing you want to have to do is chase a game that early. And Wolves would have been only too happy to sit in a mid to low block and soak up pressure and force us to try to play through that, because it's not our favorite thing to do. Or they might have done what we did at the beginning of the second half, which is just keep possession as often as possible and make us chase. You rest in possession. And you notice that Tottenham and Newcastle both overturned deficits to win games late on Saturday. I'm not sure if we would have been capable of doing that against a team that's kind of had our number of late, because the mood would have changed drastically in Villa Park if it's 1-0 to the visitors there. And thankfully, we didn't have to worry about that scenario playing out because of the best goalkeeper in the world. Just back to 24/7 services for a quick moment, the magnificent sponsor of this show. There's no chance we'd be back in England again this year without them, and we wouldn't be able to do some of the things that we're doing on this trip. Well, they had that client appreciation event at Albert Schloss I talked about earlier on Saturday night, and they have 2 mega clients in their big portfolio of clients, Network Rail and the Co-op Group. It's one of the world's biggest consumer cooperatives, like 2,500 locations in the UK. That's incredible. And I talked with representatives of both, and the words they used kept coming up again: dependable, reliable, trustworthy, quality of work. And then when you meet the staff, the bigger picture starts to emerge as to why they have clients like that. It's just a commitment to excellence. Paul and I have a lot in common, but one of the biggest things is minor OCD, perhaps bordering a little bit on anal, it's the German in us, about doing a great job and making people happy, because neither of us really fly with, oh, it's good enough. Have you ever had anybody tell you that? It's good enough. Not us. So when you have a project and you need dependability, reliability, and quality at the end of it, you know who to call. And the number 1 big moment that defined Villa 2, Wolves 0, Diaby's dingle-downing dig. let's go back to the cliche cupboard and pull one straight out of the top drawer, because this game was always going to be heavily impacted by the first goal, which is why big moment number 2 was so important. And after that moment, we kind of stabilized and took control of the game back. And what's kind of weird? This game had a lot of the hallmarks of my first ever game at Villa Park against Nottingham Forest last year. And the goal kind of came in similar circumstances. A very fortuitous deflection that fell straight to Diaby. Last year, it fell straight to Bertrand Traore, and he buried it in front of the North Stand to make it 1-0. I think Diaby, although playing limited minutes with France, was another player who really benefited from an international call-up. And I know he wants to operate, and he was brought in to operate behind Ollie Watkins in that pocket. And there have been signs of late that he was starting to regain some of that earlier season form. But he delivered when it mattered most. And when you think about the chances that came before that, the Louise goal that was called offside, and the one that Ollie Watkins will regret having not buried. But this was like the police breaking into the house with a battering ram. 1, 2, and Diaby's was the third that finally kicked the door in. And, after that, the entire complexion of the game changes. Because, after that, Aston Villa was able to do what Unai Emery has asked them to do ever since he arrived at the club. Take control of the game. Take control in possession. Take control out of possession defensively. Take control from dead ball situations, especially in the first 15 minutes of the second half, which I thought was superb. Retaining the ball, forcing Wolves to chase and chase and chase with nothing to show for it. This was classic Unai Emery. Control the game, control the clock, take the 3 points at home, and take some of the pressure off their next big game, which happens to be a straightforward trip to the Etihad to face Manchester City, my first ever Aston Villa away game, which I'm super excited about. And at the time of recording this, Man City was playing Arsenal, and obviously a huge game. And so they have one less day to prepare for that Wednesday outing. Who knows if that's going to be an advantage or not, but they also have this big tie with Real Madrid looming in the same week that we play Lille. And I think we kind of want Man City to take out Real Madrid, just as we'd like Arsenal to bounce Bayern to help improve the coefficient, which could possibly give the Premier League a 5th Champions League berth. It doesn't sound like either Kyle Walker or John Stones will be available for the game on Wednesday, but does that really matter with Manchester City? I mean, they will be expected to win, and they need to win. They're chasing a title still, and although I don't know the score between them and Arsenal at the time of recording this, right now anyway, what's incredible to me is that in week 29 or 30, if Aston Villa somehow did get a win, they'd be 1 point behind Manchester City in third place. And you never know, because this is football, especially when the team coming in doesn't really have as much pressure on it as the one they're playing. So I can't wait to go. I'll grab a ton of footage and share that with you. And perhaps maybe my very lucky record can somehow continue. Our quick tabulation sees an improvement at Villa Park, 34 of a possible 45 points earned. We increased the Watkins-Diaby combined goals for up to 20 now on the season. We scored first for the 16th time and won the game, improved our first and second half plus minus, and that was clean sheet number 7 for Emiliano Martinez. Not only was it my first game of this trip, but it was also my good friends Dale and Alison West's first ever Aston Villa live experience. And there was not one time when I looked over at either of them and did not see them grinning from ear to ear. It is a surreal, incredible experience that I will never take for granted. You might, because it's part of who you are as the English. I mean, what's incredible is we fly over Coventry. Then we see Villa Park, and I tried to take a picture. It's a crap photo. We go straight over Walsall's ground, and that's just on our flight path. You know, Blues is just over there. Wolverhampton's not that far away. And then I've been to West Bromwich Albion. Like, there's 3 founding members of the Football League, all within, 45 minutes of one another? That is just incredible to me. I will never, ever take that for granted, and I'll always be romanced and fascinated by it all. Until the Manchester City trip. Oh, I am going to cheers you. I don't have a glass, but I went to the Great Western Arcade and the whiskey shop and found 2 mini bottles of, like this. These are my favorite whiskeys. They're a bit peaty. So if you like peat, which you should, if you like this show, I would highly recommend this. Perfect traveling sizes. Until then, be well. And as always, up the mighty Villa.